700 Club. Delighted to have you with us. With me is the lovely Wendy Griffith. Glad to see you again.
Well, great to see you as always. How you doing?
Doing fantastic. And we're going to determine who the bad guys are and the good guys in Syria. And I'm not sure anybody knows, but there are a group of bad guys who are trying to impose Sharia law on the Christians, force them to pay a punitive tax. While the world is focusing on chemical weapons, the Christians are facing intense persecution. Guess what? From Muslims.
It's the latest example of Muslim attacks against Christians in countries throughout the Middle East. Ephraim Graham has the story.
Syrian Christians have supported the Assad regime because it has protected religious minorities over the years. Those days may be coming to an end.
Many analysts tend to believe that as you weaken the regime, you also strengthen radical Islamists who are fighting the regime, who will have their say and are having their say in the so-called liberated areas of Syria, in the north and elsewhere, where they're imposing Islamic rule.
That's what happened in Egypt when the Muslim Brotherhood took over. Even though the Brotherhood has been weakened by military intervention, supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsi still wreak havoc on Christians in the south.
The church was surrounded on all sides, and the people surrounding the church were armed. They couldn't be less than 1,000, totally surrounding the church, carrying weapons.
In the Christian town of Dalga, a monastery was destroyed by enraged supporters of Morsi. The ancient door was vandalized, and other nearby churches were burned.
We still don't have a church to pray at. We are still trying to clean them up. We have 4 churches in the area, and we cannot pray in any of them.
The Muslim Brotherhood in Dalga is also imposing a tax on Christians. It's called a jizya tax. According to author and translator Raymond Ibrahim, jizya is the money or tribute that conquered non-Muslims historically had to pay to their Islamic overlords, with willing submission and while feeling themselves subdued to safeguard their existence. It's already starting to happen in Syria. When rebels took over the ancient Christian town of Malula, witnesses say they gave a Christian shop owner 3 options: pay a $70,000 jizya tax, convert, or die.
Many fear what will happen in Syria will be a replay of what happened to the Christian community of Iraq, which also, like the Christian community in Syria, has played such an important role in the heritage and culture and the perceptions of tolerance in those countries, had to flee because they were targeted by radical Islamists as well.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's something we need to look at, and regrettably, I don't expect anything good to come out of the Obama administration in relation to defending the rights of Christians in the Middle East. It just won't happen. They'll come down on the side of the Brotherhood, they'll come down the side of the radicals, and they'll say, well, we're helping the, quote, moderate Islamic. Yeah, there are none in that particular struggle. Well, the United States is still looking for a diplomatic way out of the standoff of Syria's chemical weapons. John Jessup now has that story from Washington.
Secretary of State John Kerry is in Geneva today for high-stakes talks with Russia's foreign minister. The 2-day summit centers around the Russian-backed plan for Syria to hand over its chemical weapons stockpile to the international community. But Russian President Vladimir Putin says he won't support a military strike against Syria if Damascus doesn't comply. In an opinion piece in the New York Times, Putin criticized America's use of force in the Middle East. Putin writes, "The world sees America not as a model of democracy, but as relying solely on brute force." Today's talks began as reports surfaced that the U.S. has been sending small arms like light machine guns to the rebels in Syria. Obamacare is proving unpopular even with some of the president's political allies in the labor movement. The AFL-CIO has approved a resolution criticizing parts of the new law in spite of efforts by the White House or White House officials to discourage the group from making its concerns so prominent. The strongly worded resolution says the healthcare law will drive up the costs of union-sponsored health plans to the point that workers and employers are forced to abandon them. Labor unions still support the goals of Obamacare to cut healthcare costs and provide coverage to all Americans, but it says the law as it stands now will hurt union health plans. Detroit recently became the largest city in American history